Welcome back to Boston has entered the chat hour. Let's talk some Bruins and their offseason. The next step for the Bees as they want to get back to being in the postseason development camp. I know, not as exciting as everyone was thinking, but that's the first step. There's obviously the NHL draft going on at the end of the month, but development camp for the Bruins with the guys they know they have now, some drafted, some prospects, starts next Monday through Thursday. This is a camp that's important for a team that wants to reset their development system, their farm system, their prospects, where we will see guys like a Will Zellers, like a Dean Letourneau, like an Albin Boya skate for the Bees. This is an important part of, yes, the Bruins want to get back to the playoffs. They had to get younger, and they had to get better at developing prospects. So I'm really watching with this with a keen eye of what do they get out of this and who's going to be attending, Casey.
Absolutely, and you said the most important thing there. You can't steer away from the development. You can't do these long tracks anymore because the NHL is changing. We had north of 123 NHL debuts, injuries considered, but still, that's a lot of guys that were tapped with the responsibility of stepping up and making an impact for their team on certain lines, getting top 6 playing minutes. So you have to give more ability and more focus and more confidence to these younger guys. And on that note, we got our new assistant coach for the Boston Bruins, Steve Spott, and we know that he's more of a special teams specialist, if one would say. But outside of that, it was really cool. Sophia and I got to interview him on the Hockey Hub yesterday. And a few things that stood out to me was the fact that him and Marco Sturm very synergistic in their approach and with their goals and what the identity is potentially going to look like for this Bruins team. Both guys talked about the emphasis of communication, and Steve Spott has an education background. He's an education major when he played hockey at Colgate, and what I love about his trajectory and his resume, he played college hockey, but he also was a head coach in the OHL, and we're seeing how these two worlds are about to collide coming up here shortly, which just puts a point of emphasis on making sure that young players are ready and confident and developed. And he even spoke to that because of everything that's going on, because of how the league is changing. You want to make sure that you are. He said that his teaching background helps him pull the best out of students, and that translates to pulling the best out of players. What's
big with Spott, too, is his experience. Spent 3 seasons with the Knights, then 3 seasons with the Dallas Stars before he was hired by the Bruins, leading a power play that over his last 3 years was 7th best in the NHL. Power play for the Bruins this past season was anemic, was non-existent. They didn't have anyone that could quarterback it, and it just was not generating points. Again, when it comes to the hockey, we could talk about what will be the style on the ice, what will be the approach by a Marco Sturm, what will be the overall scheme we'll see, and any changes at all, and who's going to make up the top 9. We also need to see this power play return. So for Steve Spott to have that be his calling card, but also as an assistant coach to be a guy that's, spearheading the development camp as well, that's something that it's one step before the next. Okay, who's an NHL player? Who are the guys we have drafted? Dean Letourneau, there's Andre Gasso, both those guys out of BC. There's a guy like Will Zellers, who is a part of their trade deadline acquisitions, who scored a ton of goals in the USHL in his age 18 season. Okay, can those guys also be ones that we develop when they're down with Providence or up at the Boston level or in college, wherever? Can they start contributing on the power play? I think that's what I'm looking forward to for Steve Spott as well, and something maybe we read coming out of this camp too.
Oh, 100%. And so kind of tracking back, because you mentioned system when we're talking about everything moving forward, and him coming from the Vegas Golden Knights, the time frame that he was there, that has to be looked at a little tighter, honestly, because you're talking about a team that got the identity and the reputation of being misfits. You were working with a blended roster. You weren't sure what you were working with, honestly. You had some big names going for you, but other names you had to find their best skill set. You kind of had to manifest the best out of them, and it worked out in favor. So he knows how to work with a blended roster. I asked him about that yesterday on the Hockey Hub, and that's exactly what this Bruins team is about to be. You've got a few leaders on here. You got a little bit of the core still intact, but there's still a lot of other questionable pieces that they have to now make work so that we can potentially see a postseason again. Something else that him and Marco Sturm are kind of lockstep about too is what this system is going to look like. The term hybrid came up from Steve Spott yesterday.
I love that.
I am a big fan of that.
Because that means you can adapt as the games go along. You can adapt as the matchups present themselves, and you can adapt in game as well. You give your guys options. A's not working, go to B. Hybrid also maybe like a car, doesn't mean gas or electric. Go option C if it runs off pure food grease. I don't care. Whatever works. I love hearing that.
Well, I was a big fan of hearing it because of everything you just said, but also previously on Boston Under the Chat, I told Bruins fans keep an eye out for if this defensive system changes. Hybrid defenses have been known to take teams to championships, and then both of these guys, Sturm and Spott, not only have been paying close attention to the Florida Panthers, but Spott specifically has a really close relationship with Paul Maurice. He's been advised by Paul Maurice throughout his career. So you're talking about two guys that are very open to the modernization of the NHL. So that should make you hopeful for a number of things. And then you already touched on it, him kind of spearheading development camp. He's going to try to pick promising prospects to come in and make an impact on this roster. And there's a handful of guys that I think can do just that. Yeah, you look at Dean, he caught a lot of heat. We talked to James Murray about that. He said don't read too much into it. He thinks that Dean still has a lot to offer in the NHL. I mean, you got a lot of body that you got to work on and maneuver to be as special and skillful as one is hoping that you would be. But more importantly, the hybrid opportunities, the communication, the special teams ramping up. Spott even talked about getting this power play back to being a top 10 power play, already talking with Charlie McAvoy. So it's just a lot of things that shows you that they're starting to solidify what this identity needs to be, but they're doing it with moving into a new era.
This is also, it's cool to bring up, I think, Spott as someone that's mentored by Paul Maurice, where the Panthers have found a way to be really deep, really good, really consistent the last 3 seasons, because it's 3 straight Stanley Cup appearances and, of course, back-to-back Stanley Cup championships as well. But doing so with the Sergei Bobrovsky, who's an older goalie, but that's taking up $11.5 million of the payroll per year. And if you figure out how to bring out the most while paying your goalie a ton, but knowing how to play in front of him defensively and what puts him in a position to succeed, that's what the Bruins need when Jeremy Swayman's getting just over $8 million a year. So whatever Spott can pull from Paul Maurice, whatever the Bruins can pull from the Florida Panthers, and I know Bees fans would hate to hear that, but it's winning hockey. And you know what? If you're back in the postseason, making deep runs and hoisting a cup, I don't care who you stole it from, as long as you know how to apply and succeed. I think that's important. And yes, we'll hear about, and people are wanting to hear, how is Dean Letourneau looking? What is he doing? Because they know all the attention he gets. This was also a guy that was a freshman at Boston College this past season, but had to leave where he was playing junior hockey early and come to BC because they had more departures than they expected, being Greg Brown and his staff. They had more guys leave for the NHL than they expected, so they needed him to be that bottom center on that 4th line for them. And this is a kid that's still growing, still developing, still picking up his skills. It's really hard to do that in one of the toughest conferences to play developmental hockey in a way, junior hockey, away from college, or, if it's a WHL, AHL, whatever it may be. The Hockey East is very competitive. You mentioned you spoke to James Murray. He's a college hockey expert. We have a part of your convo with him. Check it out right here. Here's James Murray from his convo on Hockey Hub with Sophia and Casey.
Yeah, no, Zeller's hell of a player. Anytime you can score 44 goals, and in my opinion, the best development league in the world, in the USHL, it's stands alone. Like I think he had like 15 more goals than anyone else in the USHL or up there. I mean, he really showed his stride and how good he can be, and we'll see what he does here at North Dakota this upcoming season. I mean, his playmaking ability is unbelievable. So great shot, speed, and hands. I think if I'm a defender, I'm scared, and he's going to attack you. So you got to have your head on a swivel for that kid, and he's shown what he can do at Green Bay this past season in the USHL. And I think North Dakota, he's going to get tested, at an NCHC very tough conference as well. So he'll have some talent in there. I know North Dakota fans should be really excited. They will be excited to see him and watch him every Friday and Saturday in Nodak. So the sky's the limit for this guy, and very high ceiling. I think Bruins fans should be really excited about this kid.
Awesome conversation from James Murray. Check out the full convo. That was on Hockey Hub with Casey and Sophia. So he's talking about Will Zellers, currently 19 years old. We hear about the goals he was scoring, what he's alluding to. 44 goals in 52 games in the USHL this past season. This is also a kid that was playing for Shattuck St. Mary's since he was 16, scoring 69 goals. At the age of 16, at Shattuck St. Mary's, which is a branch off the U.S. National Development Team branch, right? It's a branch off of what Canada does as well. That's the reason Shattuck St. Mary's was created out in Minnesota. This is a kid that was a 3rd-round pick in 2024, just 19. You want to go to a college team to develop. North Dakota State provides that. And as a center, 5'11", 180, he mentioned it, the speed, the skill he has. It's also his vision and IQ that jumps off the ice at many evaluators. That is all stuff that the Bruins offense was missing. So this is someone I'm excited to watch for. Like, my eyes are on a Will Zellers. I want to see him flourish and stand out amongst everyone else on the ice.
Well, yeah, because for starters, you want the trade to make sense. We got him during the Colorado acquisition, and then more importantly, highlight in bold what you said about vision and IQ. Some of the top things reported on Will Zellers is the fact that he has the ability to create space. Now, I know that I was really high up on a player by the name of Braden Point because he works very well in tight spaces and can create space. And you're talking about somebody that can help you hold on to the puck a little bit longer as you get things sorted and situated. So as he develops develops, that's great. Then add to it, defenders should be scared of this kid.
I loved hearing that. He puts them in conflict. He makes them, their eyes get wide, and then freeze up on the ice. That's what you need.
Yep, big time. And then just to add to all of that, and then kind of circling back to the Spott conversation, Spott has a big emphasis on individual skill set. And he was on a podcast for Coach's Corner talking about the keys to skating. So I have a friend whose husband plays in the NHL, and she's mentioned to me that, like, in certain countries, you don't touch a stick until you're a teenager. You skate, 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 skate. So when you become a prominent, promising skater, it's just going to help the rest of the things fall in line. So for Spott to have that kind of the development approach, for him to be spearheading development camp, to have a guy like Will Zellers who IQ, vision, and all these kids that they're going to try to make more promising skaters on top of that, that's just going to kind of level up when we can see them make an impact on a Bruins roster.
For what we saw the Bruins do at the trade deadline, because Will Zellers was part of the package, sent Charlie Coyle to the Avs. They got Casey Mittelstadt in return and Will Zellers. Mittelstadt, if he sticks, whether he's a center or a wing at 26 years old, is a good NHL player.
Yeah.
If Zellers can tap into his potential, and let's say hit 80% of his ceiling, that's a good to great NHL player. That's what I look for, because when that trade goes down, I go, that makes amazing sense. That makes so much sense. It's what they need. That's what Zellers brings to the ice. So that's someone I'm excited to watch and all that. And then you see the names. Again, when we talk the development camp, what the Bruins have done, even getting a look at a guy like Albin Boya, who played really well for the Maine Black Bears, they made a run making it to the national tournament, was one of the best college hockey goalies in the entire nation. Again, if you can get something from him, the Swedish goalie between the pipes, and someone, again, you think you could tap into and develop, and someone that was in their backyard, give them a look and see what you could do there. It's you look at the roster. I know it's just a development camp, and we want to watch the draft. We want to see in a free agency, but the Bruins are making the right steps here.
Yeah, and it's not just development camp, because it depends on when these guys are going to be called upon to help out, because some of these kids are probably going to be closer to being ready than others. And when you look at the trade, I'm glad that you brought up Casey Mittelstadt, because a little bit of a theme here for a number of these guys that will be in development camp coming out of Minnesota.
Yeah.
Casey Mittelstadt training in Minnesota right now. Will Zellers training in Minnesota right now from Minnesota. And then I think Beckett Hendrickson is another name in development camp. He's University of Minnesota. So you're also looking at guys that have kind of the systematic similarities and where the development lines in, which just kind of bridges the gap on chemistry if the opportunity presents itself that they are playing with each other at any point for the Bruins. So you're finding a couple more connections that can help play out favorably as well. Another BC guy, Gasso.
Yeah, Andre Gasso, former 7th round pick.
Yeah, I know what Spott's going to be looking at from this kid. One-timer. What is his shot release going to be? Because when he talked about the individualization and skill sets on the power play in their interview with me and Sophia, he talked about kind of making sure that he's bringing the best out of each guy. So if they can be consistent and reliable when it comes to that one-timer, then they're going to want to press on from that. So you're looking at a number of guys that have specific roles that each coach is going to be like, all right, let's see where this can go.